Y'all ready for this?
Flawedcast. Flawedcast. Get in the arena.
All right, I want to welcome you to another episode of Flawedcast. Here with Jason.
And Bill.
Before we go any further, just need to ask you guys to subscribe, share, follow, like, link, all the above at all of our platforms on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Gab, Parler, Flawed Inc. or Flawed Inc. CLE. We are on YouTube. We are on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, Anchor.fm, Breaker, just like anywhere you listen to podcasts.
And I feel like we'll get our HBO special soon.
I think so.
But remember, the reason you want to follow, the reason you want to like is the upcoming March 3rd, 3030 drawing to win your very own spaceship.
Are we doing a spaceship or a spacecraft? I thought it was a spacecraft. I could be wrong.
Well, it'll be worth at least 100 mil.
Yes.
So maybe we'll let you in on the design.
It is a work in progress. I've seen your drafts. Initially, they're very promising. I don't know if the law of physics will apply to them, but maybe...
They will fly, Bill.
They will fly.
It will fly. If you build it, it will fly. That's my motto.
Well, I mean, you gotta have a mini bar. You gotta have a fully stocked fridge. I mean,
True that, DJ.
We ain't half stepping like Big Daddy Kane. It's gonna have all the VHS copies of Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Digitally remastered on VHS.
With the beta counterparts.
Yep, we're going to have VHS, beta. We're going to have laser disc, 8-track player. We're not going to leave... And that way, anyone from any era of life, and whatever, who knows what else we'll have by 3030.
Well, we're not just going to limit ourselves to the
anyway,
laser
like us,
format.
follow us, get in the drawing. That's what we're trying to say.
Get in the drawing. Get in the arena.
Get in the arena.
And get in the drawing.
All right, what are we doing?
So we're going to be discussing the Bill of Rights. Now, I should say this isn't going to necessarily be a comprehensive study. I believe the notion of what the foundation of our civilization is should be examined and re-examined. I think we are seriously at risk of losing these. And I think if you don't know what you have, you don't care losing it until it is gone.
I think that there's a lot of people who don't know what the Bill of Rights is. And I know this because I was one of those people for a long time. I barely graduated high school, Bill. That's truth.
That's why.
With that said, honestly, I just don't think a lot of people realize what the Bill of Rights is. Is the Bill of Rights a separate document? Or is it part of another document? Or who wrote it? Or, like, there's a lot to it. I honestly, and if you do know, don't take offense. I just think there's a lot of people out there who really don't know what it is. And that's okay. We're going to explain it to you today.
What guides our country is the U.S. Constitution. The Bill of Rights is what our founding fathers put into law that governs our society. A lot of these things we use every day, however, we take it for granted. And I just want to cover these. I think it's important that we discuss these and begin to understand, and I don't want to be too overtly political, but that's never stopped me before.
I feel we're getting political today, my friend.
I don't want to be an alarmist, but I'm really concerned about losing a lot of these. When I hear people that are trying to run for the highest office in the country say, hell yeah, we're going to take your AK-47s. Hell yeah, we're going to take your AR-15s. Or when I hear a particular religion or a particular creed or code doesn't ascribe to the quote-unquote moral traditions or moral norms of society now, they will lose their freedom of religion, the religious freedom. And I think it's important that we understand, even if you yourself aren't quote-unquote religious, that doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't impactful into your life.
Yeah, and I mean, you're obviously speaking of the first two amendments, which most people know the first two amendments, but there are 8 others in the Bill of Rights that we're going to get into as well that have some serious importance as well.
Very significant importance. And these are looked at separately, but they're also intertwined. Once again, they can stand individually, but collectively, they are what our foundation of our government, of our civilization, of our society. And these 10 notions, these 10 ideas. And once again, I talk not a lot about the natural law. I feel like the natural law the Almighty has put into place are echoed in each of these. It's important to realize how valuable and how wonderful and special we are that we have these. Countries like China, countries like, Russia. Well, yeah.
I mean, I get it. Hong Kong's not really.
Yeah, they're separate problems.
Right.
But even as we're recording this, there's a lot of talk right now about people in professional sports bending it over and letting Winnie the Pooh take advantage of them. And I want to throw up when I see people who are Americans cower to whoever it is, an evil regime that not only has nothing to do with us, but waves a couple dollars in front of people's eyes, and they suddenly lose themselves and they lose what's important and what separates us.
All right, should we just get into these?
Yes, let's go ahead. Go ahead and read the first one if you don't mind.
All right, First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It's actually a lot covered in the First Amendment.
Yeah, as you were reading that, I think if we can hit 1, 2, and 4 or 5, I think that would be a lot, because to me those are the essential ones. But one thing to keep in mind before we start to expound on the First Amendment is that, and we've talked about this in episode number 4, Amendment 1 and Amendment 2 are joined at the hip. We're going to talk about number 2 in a moment. But Amendment number 1, Congress makes the laws. The president signs them if he chooses to. That's how that works. Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of people to peacefully assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. So let's just try to unpack one of those. The notion of religion, which is important to me, certainly you, but really to all of us, because an encroachment on any of these is an encroachment on us all. And I think we really have to start looking at that. There is a famous poem called First They Came for the socialists, and I said nothing because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I said nothing, I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to stand up. I wonder, are we encroaching upon that? I identify my faith as a Christian, but I wouldn't begrudge anyone who, let's say, is a Buddhist or a Muslim or whatever. Right now, as we're recording this episode, the Chinese government is prohibiting Muslims from being able to work and being able to participate because the Muslim faith is encroaching upon their system of government. They're literally dying because of their faith. We in America do have the luxury to be able to express that. Now that doesn't mean, strapping bombs to ourselves and taking out, mallfuls of people or whomever. But it does mean if you're a Rastafarian and part of your religion is smoking weed, that's part of your religion, have at it. You're not hurting anybody. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. It's just like the freedom of speech. We in America can say what we like. That doesn't mean that there won't be consequences for what we say, but we have that freedom to say what we like. And one thing to keep in mind is at the time when the colonies were separating from England, their freedom to speak, their freedom to address the government publicly, their freedom to assemble wasn't there. They met in pubs, they met in underground areas, they met secretly so they could form the resistance.
Not because they were going to get fired from their job.
No.
But because they were going to be killed.
Exactly. And that is as important a notion as it is now as was then. And I say that with no hubris. I say that with no grandstanding. It literally is. We're only one generation away from losing these privileges. The freedom to press. Most of the press is so corrupt. They're so biased there is no journalistic integrity. And I've said in other episodes, when my degree is in English and communications, and I remember when going through journalism courses in college, the idea of libel, the idea of, when you're writing editorial pieces, you can express your opinion and your beliefs, and that's fine. But being a person with some influence that is relaying truth in facts in what actually happened, that no longer exists. And everything is...
That's because they're afraid they're going to end up committing suicide by Hillary Clinton. Oh, sorry.
They're going to get shot twice in the head.
They're going to commit suicide and shoot himself twice in the back of the head.
Like the gentleman who exposed the U.S. government was bringing crack into the country in the 80s.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. Anyway, so it's important that
I want to say this, though, real quick. When we say freedom of speech, because I want to be clear on this, we have the freedom of speech, meaning you're not going to be imprisoned, you're not going to be executed, but that doesn't mean that you can, at work, say certain things and not lose your job. It doesn't mean that you get murdered or executed or go to prison. Freedom of speech doesn't give you the right to say things without consequences, is all I'm saying. There still will be consequences. So, let's say you worked in the NFL and you decided to take a knee during the national anthem. Your employer has every right to say that's not okay at work, by the way. So understand that. It doesn't give you the right to change to make other people conform to you. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, and it goes back to, you can say what you like,
Sure
you can do what you like, however, there could be consequences, positively or negatively.
Well, and the reason I bring this up is, I don't want this to go the wrong way where people start taking what we're saying as hiding behind an amendment. That's not okay either. It's not about hiding behind it. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Bill?
Right. And, John Adams, who was one of our founding fathers, he said...
He's cousins with Sam Adams.
Yes, the mighty, mighty brewer. Who actually, his tavern was one of the places that held a lot of the founding fathers to be able to meet in secret, to be able to establish our government. It says, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And so you don't necessarily, we're talking about freedom of religion, you don't necessarily have to, quote unquote, be religious, but you have to be moral and you have to use wisdom and common sense. Once again, you can do what you want against the penalty of prison, death, so on and so forth, but you have to use some wisdom and you have to realize that there will be consequences for decisions.
Right. So what our Constitution, First Amendment, promises us, Bill of Rights, First Amendment promises us, is that say whatever you want.
Right.
And we promise that you won't go to prison and you won't be executed for it.
Right.
Our government won't hold you liable for that. However, there could be other consequences.
Well, sure.
You could offend someone. You could be disowned. All sorts of things, right? But,
sure.
Yeah, you can say it. So I just want to be clear, because some people just get really anal with it, and I want to be clear with what it really means.
No, you're right. And that there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Unfortunately, sure. It's all split. That's the problem. That's the real problem, right. Is no one's open-minded. No one's willing to listen. No one's willing to have proper confrontation and a proper argument. I don't mean yelling, screaming, shooting, punching. I mean a proper argument, proper going back and forth, talking about facts, listening to what the other person has to say. No one's willing to do it. Do a little bit of research.
Right.
People want to say something and they don't say anything back to me though.
Well, I mean, the notion of having a productive discourse seems to be going by the wayside for sure. I just think it's dangerous.
It is.
Whether you are silencing someone that you don't agree with, whether you are prohibiting somebody from practicing a religion you don't agree with, whether you are discouraging people from assembling to support a cause you do not agree with, that is your right. However, we have to realize, like that who came for, when the time comes for you to express a grievance, if you don't allow others to speak their mind freely and openly, whether you agree or not, then when it's your turn, you should expect the same kind of results. And the difficult thing, this is really the hard thing, is that we take this for granted. The First Amendment is so important because it is to protect speech that isn't popular. It is in place to protect beliefs that aren't the contemporary, that aren't the norm. And it is there to protect opinions of dissension, whether you agree with them or not. That is what that is for. And if you silence everybody that you disagree with from your bully pulpit, tides change and seasons change, and there will be a place when you may find yourself on the receiving end of that.
That's the truth. That's really what we're built upon.
It's paramount. But I can't stress how important this is. I can't. And this is the thing that separates us from every other country, every other experiment in government that has ever been. This is vitally important. The expression of freedom, the expression of one's ideas and opinions, when that is stifled, civilization becomes stifled. And it isn't open to the free market of thought. It is controlled by fascists and dictators who, right, they seek to destroy the opposition because their notions, their ideas, do not hold the same value in the marketplace of thought as perhaps others. And that's a threat that they can't live with.
I'm with you. Let's do the Second Amendment.
Let's do it. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Well, I think you missed a part there, Bill. It says, I think it says, or it's supposed to say, the right of people to keep and bear arms for the purpose of hunting.
No, I copy and pasted it right from the official.
So you're saying that the right to bear arms might be to keep our balance between freedom of the people and the government?
Essentially.
So get out of here.
No, I will not.
Man.
Hunting's good and all. I mean, have at it, right? But our founding fathers lived in the oppressive state of a tyrannical dictator who would not reason, who had given sway to madness and was allowing that to rule at that time the majority of the world. Our founding fathers understood there comes a time, and please listen to me very, very carefully. There comes a time when you cannot reason. Like to quote Michael Caine from The Dark Knight, some men just want to watch the world burn. The ultimate check and balance in our American experiment is the right of the citizenry to protect itself against a tyrannical government that seeks to invoke power and
take away their rights,
take away their freedom. That is what that is for. Well-regulated militia, people can kind of bicker over what that means. Quite frankly, if you read the rest of it, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right of you, the right of me, the right of whomever. And I look at this in two different facets. The part we were discussing in regards to, the citizenry or the militia, if you will, to be the last line of defense against tyranny. And B, for John Q. Public to protect themselves, their family, their belongings, what they worked hard for, against tyranny in the form of criminalization.
Right. There's a whole bunch of argument out there about gun control. And I can't stand that term, gun control.
Right.
How about drug control? Come on, give me a break.
We're talking about the politicians volleying for the highest office in the country. I hear them all, certain people saying, mandatory buyback. I didn't buy whatever from you. I am not, I'm not going to sell anything to you back because I did not buy it from you. It is now my property. I worked, I earned, I have the option.
You have the right, period, end of story. Right, I don't care how you got it, Bill.
Right, but once again, this comes to being a informed citizenry. And how this correlates to the First Amendment is the reality that I have my own free will. I can choose. Now, if my choice is arming myself to protect my property, to protect myself, and or to protect my country from both enemies, foreign and domestic, that is my choice. And it says here, shall not be infringed. Whether you are a supporter of weaponry, whether you believe in guns, whether they scare you, whether you have a stockpile, the fact that it says shall not be infringed, you should respect and be in agreement with that, because ultimately it is to your benefit. Criminals are still going to get weapons. Evil cannot necessarily be stopped with legislation. You can't legislate morality. This is something that I say to a lot of my friends that are certain circles of faith. And the prevailing thought is that what allows the survival of our freedoms is Amendment 2.
It's so controversial, and I don't understand why.
Well, if I may, Clint Eastwood said a couple years ago, we're living in a pussy generation. He's not wrong.
No, but it's very clear. And anyone who thinks that someone else cares about you and your family as much as you do, that someone else is going to protect you and your family the way that you would, your rights and everything else, you're absolutely have no real life experience.
That's asinine.
There's nothing like that out there. It doesn't mean there's not good people, police officers and our military who go out there and protect and give us our freedoms and all that sort of thing. I'm not saying they're not out there to do that. But the reality is, if you think our government is going to make sure that they take all of our guns and you're going to be safe, that's insanity. It's kind of like making drugs illegal and there's going to be no drug problem in America. I mean, it's as simple as that. I'll argue that till the day I die. You can't take away guns to end crime. That's not what's going to stop shootings. And by the way, shootings don't kill most of the people in this country. It's a very, very, very small percent. And look at the cities that have in the states that have the most stringent gun laws, and they have the most gun deaths.
Right.
Why? Because people who need the guns to protect themselves can't have them. There's so many stories out there that are not covered, that are buried, about a citizen who has a legal right to carry a firearm, has put down a situation that could have ended up in anything from a single murder to a robbery to a mass murder. It happens all the time. You just never hear about it. Mm-hmm. If they publicize that, things would change. Sure. They won't do that because there's no fun narrative with it. Right. It doesn't help any politicians out.
Well, and when I see these organizations and they own, these business owners, they own their business, they can choose to do what they want to do. But when I hear a manufacturer like Colt decide to disband their AR wing of operations, when I hear organizations like Walmart not selling ammunition that could be used in semi-automatic weapons.
Didn't Dick's just do something?
Dick's just destroyed, was it $5 billion
something
worth,
crazy.
$5 billion worth of assault weapons, AR-15s,
really not assault weapons, but
that's what they call it, right? It's just a semi-automatic. And for those that don't know, semi-automatic means each time that you depress the trigger, one round comes out. That's all that means. It's not, it's literally not Rambo, holding the trigger down and bursts of hundreds of rounds come out at once. That's
fully automatic. And those are illegal.
Those are illegal to the citizenry of America. We are allowed semi-automatic. And there's a lot of this discourse over, well, I wouldn't even say discourse. I would say it's a one-sided argument that how many rounds you're going to have in a clip matter or a magazine matter. It doesn't. I can have 3 30-round clips with 90 bullets total, or I could have 10 or a 9 with 10. That's still the same amount. There's still the same amount of damage. It takes less than 2 seconds to exchange a clip. So it's a matter of, and we talk about this a lot, it's a matter of people becoming educated, self-educated. If you have a fear of guns, ask somebody that you trust, that is responsible, that maybe will take you, that will show you. This is important.
I think, real quick, Bill, I'm sorry, I just had this thought. Instead of gun control, how about gun education?
Well, how about we enforce the laws that we have? We don't need
the laws, but I'm saying, why don't we educate kids? Why don't we make a course mandatory? And I'm not talking about to buy a gun. I mean, just make a course that you have to take on to be educated on a firearm.
Right.
They talk about, well, kids get a hold of a firearm and then shoot someone. Okay, let's educate them. We have this thing called school that they go to for 19 years, and it would take all of about 4 hours of all those years of school that I'm sorry, not 19 years, 13 years, 12 years of school and 1 year of kindergarten, 13 years. They're 19 years old, 18 years old, whatever. Anyway, it would take all about 4 hours. One class, right? Don't we have a class on sexual education? 6th grade? Puberty time, right? Well, why can't we have a class on how to be educated about firearms so people aren't scared of them, so people know how to handle them? So when people get into that situation, just like with sex,
right,
they know how to handle it.
Right.
They know how to be safe about it, right? Why don't we do the same thing with banking and credit, right? Why don't we do these things? We have the ability to educate our children so that they aren't fools when they get older,
right,
so that they can understand right from wrong, right? We educate them on drugs, don't we? Remember when we were a kid, we had DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance Education. Yeah. They have something else now, I think. I don't think called DARE anymore. But there's all sorts of things like that out there. Why aren't we implementing something like that? Okay, we say drugs are bad, but we educate kids about them. So why don't we educate kids about guns? Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, that's a valid point. I think maybe it's parental responsibility. I grew up around weapons.
No, I hear you.
And I don't know if you remember as a kid, like growing up, like my dad had the big gun case in the corner.
Well, no, we just took my 12-year-old,
right,
to the shooting range, and he got to shoot 400 or 500 rounds through a 9mm.
Right.
He was in heaven, right? And he got to learn a lot.
Yeah.
About gun safety and how you handle things, and he got to watch other people respect weapons because there's a group of us in there, not just you and I, but other strangers in there with different type of weapons. There's a lot to be learned by that. So I'm not saying it's not still a parental responsibility. It's still my responsibility as a parent to make sure that my kids have sex education and all those other things. I'm just saying I'm talking about the politicians and everyone who's out there saying we need more gun control, we need more of this. Well, how about this? How about more gun education is all I'm saying. I'm not trying to say the parent isn't still responsible for a lot of things, right? They are. But I think we have an opportunity that we are missing. We learned some really stupid things. I have 5 kids in school, Bill. 5. And some of the things they're learning is not going to set them up for life. Okay?
Right.
I have kids, and I don't mind what they're learning, and I understand, and I'm sure as an educator, you can tell me why it's important. But 2 of my kids just had a project where they have to build a game for computer class. They had to design a game, write code. Now, I get it. Computers are important, this and that. I still think it'd be really important to have a class on banking, to have a class on how to handle money, how credit works, how debt works, right? Some real-life stuff. They don't do woodwork anymore. No. They don't do home ec, learn how to cook. Oh, that's not important anymore. Just go to McDonald's. Rely on someone else. We don't want to teach kids how to do the things that they need to do to live. We want to make everyone like robots and dependent on all these other things. And it drives me up a wall. Why are we not teaching kids? And I get it. I'm not saying it's not a responsibility. My kids help me cook. Not every one of them, but 3 of them of the 5 they really enjoy that, right? But they cut the grass, they clean the house. We work and do things together all the time because that's my job to teach them. But they go to school and sure, man, they can learn how to do, but they play computer games, they don't even know how to do it. They already knew how to do the damn thing. They're getting straight A's in those classes because they already know how to do it.
Yeah.
But you can't go to YouTube and find out how to properly bank, how to properly spend money and how to budget.
Right.
And understand responsibilities. So anyway, I know we're getting off topic here. I apologize, but
no, it's good.
But again, going back to Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, I get so aggravated by the folks who think the answer is to take guns away, to take the Second Amendment away from the law-abiding citizens, because that's all you're taking away from.
More than that, if we break it down to its basic bottom denominator, is you telling me I do not have the right to own a weapon, whether it be to protect myself against the government or to protect myself, my person. That is authoritarianism. That is fascism, because you are trying to impress your will over mine. You are trying to dominate your point of view over my point of view and override my rights. And that's what is, if we break it down, that is what is happening.
And that's the start to a bad place.
Well, and I fear we are knocking on that door.
It feels that way. And this is, I gotta be honest with you, again, I told you we're getting political here. No, I'm not even gonna say it.
No,
I agree with you.
Do it.
I just say that's why Hope to God we can get Trump back in office.
Right.
Honestly, him and his cronies are the ones that give me hope that we're not going to be overtaken by these crazy asses out there who are trying to control us.
Yeah.
That's it. I have a hard time listening to and believing these politicians. I'm going to give you two scenarios why. One is they've been there for like 20 plus years. In some cases 40, okay? And they're bitching about our president ruining the country. We're not fixing the country or whatever else.
Who's barely been there 3 years.
Right. Okay, number one, red flag, people. Red flag. Number two, their salary, they've been there for 20 years. They were not millionaires when they became politicians. They have a salary of $170,000 a year, and they're multi-millionaires. Red flag number two. These are the people you're listening to. These are the people who are out there. Sounds like you want to talk about people who are in it for themselves, who are trying to take control, who are trying to oppress us. That's what's happening, and it's scary as hell. That's who's trying to take our rights.
Well, it's tyranny trying to extinguish the flame of freedom. I don't know how more poetic or simple to put that.
It's quite poetic.
It's like I rewatched 300. What struck me is these men, and obviously the movie 300 is a gross embellishment of historical events, but what rings through that to me is the notion that these warriors were willing to give up their lives for their beliefs, for their loved ones, and to defend their land, you can even argue their honor, against evil that was trying to perpetrate itself against their way of life.
Yeah.
And, it's like taking their sword, taking their shield away from them and saying, hey, just, it's like Leonidas talking to Xerxes, like, hey, listen, let's try to work this out. You once again, you can't reason, you can't acquiesce, you can't take a knee and bow to evil. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't. And Bill, you talk about 300, but it was just on the other night. One of my favorite all times, Braveheart.
Oh.
Same sort of thing, right? The nobles are out midfield there, talking to the English, getting ready to get their extended lands and whatnot,
right?
That the king's going to give them to turn around and leave and pay the king money instead. And here comes William Wallace out and basically says, "Kiss our arse."
Oh, that's right.
He doesn't want any of it, man. He's like, no, these are our terms. These are Scotland's terms.
Right.
We're free. We're freedom. We deserve freedom, and we're not going to listen to what you have. We're not going to let you oppress us, right? And all those folks that followed William Wallace because they wanted that they believed in, just like you're saying about the 300.
Right.
Same thing.
Right. And even in that speech,
and we have it.
We're giving it away.
We're giving it away. Right. And here they are. We're in Hong Kong,
right?
Fighting for it,
dying for it.
Right. It's unbelievable. You look at Hong Kong; they're holding American flags up. Wouldn't they be ashamed if they actually knew what was happening over here right now?
What William Wallace says is that would you, you're scared, you can run away, and you'll live another day, but would you be willing to trade this day until that for just one chance to live as a free? Freedom is such a taken for granted notion. I would say this hit me the other day. If you look at Trump, the guy's lost billions, and that's billions with a B. The guy is not getting paid to be the president. He's chosen not to take a salary, which is very commendable in and of itself.
It's only $400,000 a year. Chump change, right? Give me a break. That's a lot of cash. That's right. $1.6 million.
I know. I understand what you're saying, but my point is if you want to make the comparison of the business that he's lost, if you want to make a comparison to the founding fathers, how they literally gave up life, land, and honor, like them signing the Declaration of Independence was literally them signing their own death warrants. Right. And to a certain degree, I see men throughout history who've done, and even within the last 100 years, you can look at people like Martin Luther King Jr., who we talk about, John F. Kennedy, and maybe our current president, you could count possibly Possibly, it's too
it's too early, but
right. But I
he's heading that direction.
Right, exactly, and that is.
I mean, what's in it for him? This is the other thing. This is the other thing. Not only has we took your business and everything, so that's all the stuff he's lost, right?
Right.
So let me ask you this: what has the United States lost or gained in the 3 years that Trump's been president? What have we lost?
I would say the biggest thing we've lost is common sense and unity. I don't blame him. I think the things we've gained are people are starting to wake up. I think there are
What about the tangibles?
Well, yeah, I mean, literally, we have the highest employment rate that we've had in over 50. Last time I looked was over 50 years.
But not
the highest minority unemployment ever.
Right. And I just want to make that clear because everyone calls him a racist. He's the farthest thing from a racist. Sure. And all these people who are saying this about him, by the way, were his buddy when they wanted his money.
Exactly.
Go and you can find pictures and all sorts of stuff anywhere.
Right.
Makes me sick. This guy has done so much for this country already in a positive way.
Right.
Again, we've said this before on our show. I'm not saying that Donald Trump and I would be best buds and be hanging out together. I'm not saying we have necessarily the same value set. But he has nothing to gain and a lot to lose by being president of the United States and doing the things he's doing and saying the things he's doing.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct.
And he's getting results, by the way. So don't sit here and tell me he's getting results.
Right.
And I said this to you earlier today. Not on the podcast, but earlier today. Results matter.
Results matter, yes. Yeah.
Simply said, results matter.
To summarize all that, the notion of freedom is not necessarily one that can be reasoned with words, which is why we have the First Amendment. We have the right to freedom of speech. We have the right to express our opinions. We have the right to draw boundaries. When those boundaries are breached, we then have the right to protect ourselves. Hence, the important dynamic of the First and Second Amendment. All of these other things are minimal. They matter.
They're the most important, no doubt about it.
Yeah. You know,
I mean, 1 and 2 are critical, and we have to continue to fight to keep these amendments alive and well. We cannot let these be taken from us.
Right.
Fear if we don't fix what's happened in our government with these professional politicians who... the thing I was going to say real quick, because it ties to what my thought is right here. When we were talking about Braveheart and what William Wallace said, he said, you feel that the people, that noble means the people are here to provide for you. But I believe that the nobles are here to provide for the people. And that's our government. The government was built upon, it's a government of the people, by the people.
Right.
However, over the last umpteen years, it has become a government turned just the opposite way. Sure. That we're here to provide for them, right? With the salaries they get, with the retirement they get. They take our Social Security from us. They get medical for the rest of their lives. They're becoming multimillionaires on $100,000 salaries. It's a scam. They're there to make money to better themselves. You know, when I say they, I get it. I'm lumping everyone in, and not everyone's bad, but it is the ones of power have become. The Clintons, I mean, look at it. Give me a break.
Sure.
They were politicians their entire lives, and they're worth 9 figures, folks. 9 figures. How does that happen as a politician? How does that happen? Seriously, if that's not a red flag, folks, what is? And I'm probably going to commit suicide tonight for saying that.
Oh.
Suicide by Hillary. Sorry, I'm just so sick of the BS.
Well, and it's
and the blindness that we have. Just look at some of the red flags. You can't deny them.
And this is important. Why, if for no other reason, you and I have this. This is afforded us this opportunity, this outlet to speak. This is afforded to us by this founding document, and what these ambassadors of evil, these tyrants, these fascists, the real authoritarians, what they are doing, trying to extinguish the light of liberty and the light of freedom, that will continue to shine brightly in the hearts of every man and every woman as long as you're willing to take a stand for it and realize that personal liberty and personal freedom starts with you.
Get in the arena.
when you get in the arena, fight. If we don't fight, it will be taken. Power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what we see. The thing that is so grievous is that we're just handing this over. We're literally, like these NBA stars that have, they upset Winnie the Pooh this last week, and so now the NBA is going to lose some money. They're literally bending over and letting Winnie the Pooh shove it in their ass.
The king, LeBron James, who opened his trap and just, as far as I'm concerned, looked like a moron. Because if you look back to everything LeBron's done and said over his entire life, and then hear what he just said right there, it just shows his true colors.
It doesn't stand with the character that he's led, at least me.
Again, it shows his true colors as far as I'm concerned.
And it's sad. But once again, that's a prime example of the hour in history we're occupying. Are we going to allow evil to overtake us, or are we going to stand and say, you can take my life, but you cannot take my freedom?
Yeah, no, Bill and I, straight up, we believe that, we believe in the Bill of Rights, we believe in the amendments, we believe in the Constitution, we believe in this country, and we're not afraid to speak here today, obviously, because of the First Amendment. It affords us that. With that said, could we be pulled down from some of the platforms we're on? Hey, man, that's the risk we take.
Right.
But, this is what we believe, and it's okay, by the way, if you don't agree with us. We're not looking. We're open-minded. I would love to hear from some of you if you don't agree with some of the stances we're taking or some of the thoughts that we have. These are our thoughts, our opinions, our beliefs, and that's okay if you have other ones, by the way. And
if you are bold enough, we welcome you to come and debate with us.
Absolutely. I have no problem with that at all.
Yeah.
As long as it's open. It's not about, it doesn't have to be right or wrong. It can be what you believe and what we believe, and we can discuss that and talk about it. And there's a lot to learn from both sides. That's part of being open-minded.
Please know your history. Please know the law. Please know the founding documents that you are subjected to. They're being manipulated. They're being turned, and they're being taken away. And that's not hubris. That's not trying to be an alarmist. That's me at my most heightened sense of realism. And that if we aren't looking and listening, Jesus, we talk about him a lot. Jesus said, watch and pray. We need to understand when people say things, they normally really mean it. And when someone says, I'm going to extinguish a right from you because it is contrary to my worldview, I just think to myself, what if I were a person my age living in 1920s Germany, watching a charismatic but odd-looking man rise to power, and I see so many similarities. And don't be misled to think, oh, this can't happen in America. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled is to tricking people that he doesn't exist. And that's the same thing. Oh, that can never happen. Well, we have repeated cases in history where it has happened.
Yes, we do.
If repeated. And if we...
happening now.
If we fool ourselves to think that we're exempt from that, then we are in more peril than I'm capable of communicating at this moment.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think we got to come back, revisit this. I see another episode in our future.
I do too. I want to thank you guys. If you want to learn more about stuff and you don't know where to start, flawedincle@gmail.com. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Gab, Parler. You can get in touch with us. We will be able to. If we can't answer questions, we will try to point you in the direction of resources that can. If you have a dissenting opinion, then, hey, seriously, we would be welcome to have a show where we would speak with people who don't agree. And that's fine. You don't have to agree. But give reason. And like I said, if you look at the statistics, especially in regard to the First and Second Amendment, they're overwhelmingly positive that these amendments are in place for a reason. They work. The natural law...
There's a reason they're 1 and 2, by the way.
That's right.
Look at the signs. You heard me say red flag a lot. Look at the signs, folks. Positive and negative. Try to be open-minded and look at the signs. Look at some facts. They'll lead you to the right answer. Facts don't lie.
No,
they gotta be facts.
Statistics don't lie. The facts don't lie. Statistics don't lie. One quick statistic I think to leave you with would be a really good thing to think about and really seriously ponder would be most mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. That's a fact.
100%. No fear there, right?
So with that being said, thank you for listening.
Get in the arena.
Get in the arena.